Translated by Nine Tales, edited by Fish Creek. Chinmu was struck dumb, unable to tell which Dao companion this was. Yet when the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor laid bare his worry to him, Chinmu's scalp went numb and his hair seemed to bristle. He felt that if the other wished, he could be erased, silenced for good. "You needn't worry." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor appeared to see through his thoughts and said at ease, "I merely had a stir of feeling in my chest and shared it with you. You're a fine listener. If it were that blabbermouth Duke Wei, I wouldn't dare say much. Otherwise, the whole Imperial Court would learn of it by tomorrow." Duke Wei? Wei Yong seems to come from Duke Wei's clan. Chinmu blinked with an innocent look. Duke Wei, a first-rank High Minister, was also a blabbermouth? Wei Yong's chatter was already a headache, so he'd truly learned it from the family. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Besides, though you're a 6th-rank Imperial Academician and hold office, you're not of the court. Speaking with you is very safe." He curved his lips and said, "The most crucial point is that no one would ever believe what the Devil Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cults says." Chinmu's face immediately sank. Though Heavenly Devil Cult held a good name among the common folk, in the eyes of the Imperial Court and the martial world, its reputation was foul. Those few generals drew near, and one of them cupped his fists and bowed. "Imperial Preceptor, Heaven Wave City has already been quelled." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded. The few generals then looked at Chinmu, faces full of puzzlement. Chinmu smiled and nodded back at them. "This is the first Imperial Academician of our dynasty," the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said. Imperial Academician Chinmu. Seeing Chinmu's honest, dignified bearing, the generals were quietly impressed. Though young, he gave off a sense of steadiness and dependability. They couldn't help exclaiming, "Academician Chin is truly young yet matured, as expected of the first Imperial Academician. Erudite indeed." Chinmu returned the greeting with a smile. "You flatter me." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned and gazed southward. "This bout only lets them glimpse what we can do. The battle after that is the truly crucial one." "Keke!" Astonishment rose in the generals' hearts as they hurried forward. "Imperial Preceptor, your injury." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor waved them off. His face was slightly pale. Then he steadied himself and said, "I likely suffered some recoil when I slew that devil god just now. It's nothing serious. The rebel army is stationed to the south, and I intend to offer them 2 choices. Pillar of State he." A square-faced general bowed. "Yes, Imperial Preceptor. Go to the south and tell the rebels I am coming. I am giving them 2 choices." With a cold expression, the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor pointed toward the southern borderlands. "First choice, I will lead thousands of soldiers and cavalry across, trample them underfoot, eradicate their cults, eradicate their sects, eradicate their entire families. Such are the rules of the Imperial Court. This is what awaits rebels." Pillar of State General He Xiaopeng listened carefully as the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor continued. "Second choice, we follow the rules of the martial world. I will bring the officials of the court and mark out a field. They will all go there and challenge us according to the rules of the martial world. If they have the ability, they can kill us. Otherwise, we will kill them. 2 choices. Let them decide." Pillar of State. He hesitated and said, "Imperial Preceptor, I fear it's a little inappropriate to proceed by the rules of the martial world, isn't it?" The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor replied, "Before I entered the Imperial Court as an official, I too was of the martial world. Why should it be inappropriate? And isn't it the same for Pillar of State General? You also entered the court from the martial world, am I right?" "Pillar of State," he answered, "I'll head to the southern border right now. However, now that Imperial Preceptor is recuperating, if they choose to go by the rules of the martial world, I'm afraid Imperial Preceptor will be stabbed in the back." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor waved his hand, and Pillar of State he departed. Pillar of State Wei. "Yes, Imperial Preceptor. Dispatch the soldiers and cavalry to cross the river, spreading into the shape of a fan. The east side will move all the way to the East Sea. The west side will move all the way to Great Ruins. Push forward in a horizontal sweep. Suppress lakes, we cross lakes. Suppress rivers as we cross rivers. Eradicate cities when we cross cities. Press southward." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said without expression, "We must let these rebels feel the pressure." Wei Wenju receives Imperial Preceptor's command. "Duke Wei, yes, Imperial Preceptor." "Duke's cultivation is strong and you are skilled at commanding troops. You will lead forces straight for Daxiang on the southern border. Grand General of crowning the army. Grand General of cherishing transformation. Each of you will lead an army and advance on both flanks of the Duke to eradicate the left and right cities of Daxiang. Pillar of State Shang, you will lead an army and slaughter toward Daiyu." After the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor finished deploying the armies and giving his instructions, Duke Wei grinned. "Imperial Preceptor, now that we've all gone to work, what about you?" The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor smiled. "I'll walk slowly behind you all and wait for the rebels to make their decision. Besides, I still have some injuries and must recuperate." "Your injury isn't healed yet?" Duke Wei boomed. "Then you must rest for a spell. Isn't the little divine physician beside you? Let him treat you. My wife even slipped off to Flower Alley in the capital behind my back. I thought she fancied women and went to those brothels for fun. Turns out she went to find the little divine physician for a cure. She scared the hell out of me and even made me a little excited. I thought she was into this kind of stuff." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor coughed dryly, looking rather awkward. "It's time for Duke to dispatch your troops. Daxiang is an important ground of the southern border army. It's a tough bone to chew." Duke Wei nodded and turned to leave. Then he turned his head back and said to Qin Mu, "Little divine physician, give him a prescription to cure that rigid face of his. This long face can't even squeeze out a smile. Heh, don't go looking around. I recognized you. When my wife went to your place for treatment, I secretly followed. I feared she was sleeping with other women and was even a little excited." Qin Mu's expression stiffened as he waved back at him. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor let out a turbid breath and said, "Ignore him. The men of the Wei family are all like this. Their mouths are so big they could swallow a few cows." Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Clearly, the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had tasted plenty of suffering himself. Duke Wei must have spewed endless nonsense in front of him. "Imperial Preceptor, we'll part ways here," Qin Mu said with a smile. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor shook his head. "Part ways? For what? You're still following me to the southern borders. Without you at my side, how will you cure me?" Qin Mu said awkwardly. "Stop teasing, Imperial Preceptor. You know your own injuries better than I do. Moreover, I brought scholars out for experience, but I've now lost a few of them. I must find them in case they die amid this chaos." "You must follow me." The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's face clouded as he said, "I'll help you find those scholars of yours." "What are their names?" Qin Mu truly did not wish to follow him. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was plainly placing immense pressure upon the rebels of the southern borders with the marching armies, forcing those sects and clans to have no choice but to come and kill him under that pressure. He seemed to give them two choices, but in truth there was only one. If Qin Mu followed the Imperial Preceptor, he would certainly become a target as well. He was only at Five Elements realm. How could he stand against such a leviathan? However, now that the Imperial Preceptor had spoken, Qin Mu could not refuse. He could only state the names, Chen Wanyun and the rest. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor raised his hand, and a fire cloud shot into the sky. The fire cloud shifted in mid-air, forming the names of Chen Wanyun, Yu Qinghong, Yun Kuei, and Si Yunxiang. Another fire cloud then became an arrow pointing toward Qin Mu's location. Not long after, Chen Wanyun, Si Yunxiang and the rest hurried over, all bore injuries. Plainly they had also fought hard battles and barely escaped death. The dragon Qilin was with them as well, carried over by the wolf slave. "Scholars of Imperial College meet Imperial Preceptor!" Chen Wanyun and the rest jolted in shock upon seeing the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and immediately greeted him. The few of them felt uneasy. Qin Mu had summoned the Juqian Devil King and caused a vast calamity leading to countless deaths. They had participated as well and were considered accomplices of the Imperial Academician. If the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor wished to punish them, they would surely be executed too. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor swept his gaze over everyone. When it landed on the dragon Qilin, he nodded and smiled. The dragon Qilin immediately struggled to rise and greeted him. "Imperial Preceptor." "Big Dragon, why are you still injured?" Hulinga leapt onto the dragon Qilin's back and asked in puzzlement, staring at the wound on his butt. "You can't reach your own butt to lick it." The dragon Qilin gave a dull snort and ignored her. Qinmu stepped forward, took out several bottles of dragon saliva, and applied it to the wound on the big fellow. The dragon Qilin's injury was quite serious. The Dutian Devil King's gaze had sliced through the dragon scales and even into the muscles of his butt. Fortunately, this dragon Qilin's scales were extremely durable and managed to block the Dutian Devil King's gaze, or he would surely have been cleaved into two halves. Qinmu took out several more bottles of dragon saliva for Chen Wanyun and the rest to heal the wounds on their bodies. "Yunque, Wanyun, one bottle is 10,000 Great Abundance coins." Hulinga reminded them with good intention. "If you don't have the money, you can write a certificate of indebtedness first." Monk Yunque's face turned ashen as he muttered, "This poor monk is already penniless, truly penniless. Ever since the academician Qin came to Imperial College, this poor monk has become penniless. If I owe so much money, I fear I can only repay it in the next life. Sister Fox, can you take pity on me?" Qinmu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Linga, stop fooling around. I brought them out for experience, so I have the responsibility to treat them when they're injured, let alone I bear the reputation of a divine physician. Physicians treat patients like their parents. How can I charge them? After this experience, if they get injured again, you can charge them then. If you charge them now, you'll spoil my reputation." Yue Qinghong had planned to ask for one more bottle of dragon saliva as a spare, but when she heard that, she swallowed the thought back down. She thought to herself, he's still thinking of charging money to treat illness. Deep inside, he really is very petty. Si Yunqiang was injured as well, so she asked Qinmu for a bottle of dragon saliva. She pulled Yue Qinghong along, and the two girls ran into the forest to undress before helping each other apply the medicine to their bodies, preventing scars from being left behind. "Sister's figure is really good. I'm not as big." Si Yunqiang sized up Yue Qinghong and exclaimed in admiration. Yue Qinghong smiled. "You're still young. When you grow older, they'll become bigger as well. Moreover, it feels slightly uncomfortable when they get bigger, especially when you're running. I'm also not used to wearing a tube top. It would be best if I could wrap them. However, I can't find a good tailor." Si Yunqiang thought for a moment. "I've heard the academician is also a tailor, and the clothes he makes look quite nice. How about—" Yue Qinghong jumped in shock, her black eyes widening. "How can I do that? He's a male." Qinmu gathered everyone and said with a grave expression, "The mission of our training has changed. I must follow Imperial Preceptor to the southern borders and go deep into the enemy's territory. Imperial Preceptor's injuries have yet to heal, and I must stay by his side to treat him. If you wish to return, you may leave now." Chen Wanyun and the rest grasped the crucial point and knew danger would lie everywhere along this road, so they all hesitated somewhat. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I can give you pointers in cultivation along the way. Last time I was invited by your Grand Chancellor, my lecture didn't even last 2 days. This time I'm giving face to the Imperial Academician." Translated Editor Fish Creek. The moment those people heard it, their eyes lit like lanterns in the night, and Yunque let out a laugh, saying, "Naturally, we must press deep into the southern borders and see whether the rebel army truly hides any experts. We can't allow these rebels to look down upon our Imperial College. This poor monk shall use the Dharma to awaken them, convert them into Buddhists, and let them do good." Qinmu secretly shook his head. These fellows were still underestimating how perilous this trip would be. This was a path harsh as iron and steep as a cliff, a road they might not finish even if they wagered their very lives. "Our lives and deaths now rest with fate. Let us see whether Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, the #1 man beneath the gods, truly lives up to that name." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor travelled light and headed south. Qinmu led the others to follow behind, all the while asking Si Yunqiang about what they had encountered in this battle, and he couldn't help but sigh, again and again, with a bitter heaviness. The fates of Si Yunqiang, Chen Wanyun and the others had been far better than Qin Mu's. They too had been blasted away by Duqian Devil King, yet they hadn't run into abnormally powerful practitioners like Long Jiaonan. The dragon Qilin had landed not far from them. Since the beast was enormous, they sprinted straight to where it stood, and when the heavenly devil horde descended, they formed a ring around the dragon Qilin and began to fight. At the same time, that dragon Qilin also battled the surging heavenly devil horde. Its combat prowess was astonishing, and Si Yunxiang and the others relied on its might to survive this calamity. Qin Mu stared at the dragon Qilin, astonished. Hu Ling'e whispered at his ear, "Young master, that big fella's been eating and drinking our stuff, yet he did nothing along the way here. Now it's even better. He protects others and doesn't protect us. I think, besides squeezing dragon saliva out of big fella, we can squeeze other things out of him too." "I think so as well," Qin Mu nodded. He turned his head to look at Heaven Wave City, which was growing farther and farther away. Now that Eternal Peace's army has entered the city, Long Jiaonan should die at the army's hands, right? And the Dragon King of Dragon Rider Sect should be dead as well. What a pity the unique spells of Dragon Rider Sect are gone. Great Mountain Sect is probably wiped out entirely too. It's also a pity I didn't manage to learn spells like Devil Withdraw Command. When Duqian Devil King had been summoned by him, the Taoists of Great Mountain Sect had rushed over, trying to use Devil Withdraw Command to drive Duqian Devil King back to Duqian. However, Duqian Devil King's ability was too terrifying, and with a single strike he wiped them out. Yet Devil Withdraw Command was an extremely intricate spell, specially used to deal with devils that had been summoned. If it were executed by someone stronger, it truly could chase Duqian Devil King back. It was a pity that this spell was lost along with the deaths of Great Mountain Sect's followers. Heaven Wave City was in chaos, and soldiers were still repairing the city walls. They cleared away the rubble of collapsed buildings and transported it out of the city. Upon the river's surface, thousands of ships and boats moved out, ferrying division after division of the army across. The army did not halt at Heaven Wave City, and instead continued south. There were still soldiers in Heaven Wave City, capturing the remnants of the rebel army and hemming in the heavenly devil horde from Duqian. And in the process, they discovered some commoners who had survived by sheer luck. Soldiers carried paintings of bandits and walked among the survivors, comparing faces one by one against the portraits. "This girl is born pretty." A soldier came to the side of a girl who stood there in a daze and muttered in admiration. She wore a dark green gown that fell to her feet, and her hair was gathered into a bun. Her features were delicate, her powder light, her red lips like two purple-red pearls, and her long, shapely brows finely drawn. At a glance, one could tell she was a well-bred young lady from one of Heaven Wave City's great families. The soldier stole 2 more looks, then walked elsewhere. The girl's gaze was like spring water, and from her left ear hung a glistening red jade earring. Suddenly, that earring stirred and stretched its body. That earring was a tiny red snake threaded through her ear piercing. It looked as though it were carved from red jade, yet it was in truth a living thing. If Qin Mu were here, he would definitely order the soldiers to seize this woman. He had once seen Long Jiaonan's true face. He had seen Long Jiaonan's entire body when she was shedding her skin, no makeup at all, on the woman who had just crawled out from her cast skin. Now that she had regained her feminine attire, she looked completely different from the pretty young master of Dragon Rider Sect. The soldiers were currently moving corpses through the city, tossing them onto carts and pushing the carts out to bury the dead beyond the walls. Long Jiaonan followed behind them, weeping as she called, "Sirs, is my father's corpse inside?" The soldiers stopped and said, "Little maiden, there are too many corpses in the city. We don't know which one is your father. Do you see him on the cart?" Long Jiaonan looked and shook her head. "No." A soldier said, "He's most likely in the burial mounds outside the city. General Yu ordered us to dig a few huge pits there to bury the corpses. All the bodies were moved there, and they haven't been covered up yet. Does little maiden want to follow us there to take a look?" Long Jiaonan thanked them and followed those soldiers to the burial mounds outside the city. A massive pit had been dug here, dozens of yards deep, and within it thousands of corpses were piled together. Long Jiaonan raised her head and saw, beyond this pit, dozens more of such enormous pits scattered across the burial mounds. Beside the pits, soldiers pushed carts forward and dumped corpses into the depths. Long Jiaonan looked around, then suddenly cried out, "Father, father! Daughter is here to find you. If you can hear me, please answer me." She shouted several times, and the soldiers didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. This woman has most likely gone crazy. At that moment, a weak voice drifted up from a huge pit. "I'm here. I'm currently shedding my skin, but I was too heavily injured." The soldiers by the pit were stunned, and an officer suddenly shouted, "Something's wrong! Everyone, be on your guard!" When Long Jiaonan heard that voice, a smile flickered in the shadows of her expression. "Xiao Hong!" The incomparably tiny red snake hanging from her left ear stretched out its body and dropped from her ear. The instant it touched the ground, it swelled in size, and in the blink of an eye, it became a gigantic snake. Poisonous gas spewed from its opened maw, and the soldiers around the burial mounds collapsed one after another. The huge snake slithered like wind, swallowing soldiers one by one. Meanwhile, Long Jiaonan walked into the pit and flung corpses aside. At last she dug out the Dragon King who had been buried among the dead. "Daughter thought father had died," Long Jiaonan chuckled. "Daughter?" Dragon Rider Sect's Dragon King snorted coldly. Long Jiaonan's expression shifted slightly. She lowered her head. "Son had thought father had died." The Dragon King sat up. "I feigned death by entering hibernation to bluff that devil god, so I was thrown into this burial mound as a corpse. Not sure how Red Dragon is doing." He pursed his lips and let out a low whistle. Not long after, a little monster, like a snake yet not a snake, like a dragon yet not a dragon, crawled out from the forest. The Dragon King finally exhaled in relief and checked the Red Dragon's injuries. "Red Dragon and I must shed our skins and rest for a period of time. Good son, I'll leave this period of time to you. Let us go." Long Jiaonan called the huge snake over. Demonic gas surged as the great snake rose into the sky, carrying 2 humans and 1 dragon as it whooshed away. Only then did the soldiers in Heavenwave City react, but it was already too late for them to pursue. "Who was it that created such trouble and caused such a crushing defeat?" the Dragon King asked. "How many of us from Dragon Rider Sect have survived?" "Only we're left." Long Jiaonan snorted coldly. "I heard the scholars of Imperial College call him Academician Qin. He was the one who summoned the devil god and wiped out our Dragon Rider Sect. It's a shame your son is incapable, and let him escape. We father and son still live, so Dragon Rider Sect cannot be said to be completely wiped out." The Dragon King said coldly, "As long as we know who he is, it will be easy. With such enmity, we must take revenge. We must tear him into 1,000 pieces." Qin and the rest followed Imperial Preceptor to the south, and not long after, the army surged up from behind and passed them as it pressed onward. They continued at a steady pace. Qin seized the chance to ask Imperial Preceptor for guidance. "Imperial Preceptor is a wise man, and this student has one matter I cannot resolve. May I ask Imperial Preceptor for advice?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor asked in astonishment, "Who did you learn your flattery from? You're rather skilled at it." Qin was bewildered. "Is this considered flattery?" Yue Qinghong, Yun Kuei, Chen Wanyun and the others all nodded repeatedly. Even Si Yunxiang nodded without pause. Qin muttered, "My elder taught me this. My elder is a cripple who's always smiling. His words are pleasant, but his actions are ruthless. Let's not talk about this. Imperial Preceptor, I want to ask you, in Spirit Embryo Realm, the Spirit Embryo is very useful for overall control of one's vital qi, but 5 Elements Realm seems a little..." He thought for a moment before continuing. "A little weak. There seems to be great power in 5 Elements Realm, yet it's hard to bring it out. For instance, there are 5 gods in 5 Elements Realm, and each god has its own strengths. However, how do we make the 5-element divine treasure unleash its power?" This question drew Chen Wanyun and the others' attention. They too had pondered Qin question before, yet they had never reached a conclusion. 5 Elements Realm truly did seem somewhat weak compared to Spirit Embryo Realm. Their cultivation had grown, but that was all. There was no qualitative leap. Eternal Peace, Imperial Preceptor, was astonished. You all haven't discovered the secret of 5 elements? Or should I say, Imperial College hasn't taught you? Qin shook his head. Chen Wanyun and the others also shook their heads. The directorates of this generation are not capable. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sighed with a trace of regret. They don't even teach this now. The current directorates must be the lousiest directorates. 5 elements divine treasure is the 5 phases divine treasure, with 5 phases concealed within. They correspond to the 5 element star sovereigns in the sky. These 5 gods are sovereign king level, no minor gods. When you execute your techniques, do you sense an abnormality? An unknown energy entering your body from the sky, resonating with the 5 element star sovereigns? Everyone nodded repeatedly. Eternal Peace. Imperial Preceptor said, "This is the power of the 5 elements. Gold corresponds to gold, fire corresponds to fire, water corresponds to water, wood corresponds to wood, earth corresponds to earth. Activate these 5 kinds of energy, and you can control the power of the 5 elements. Have the 5 elements star sovereigns return to their own star palace?" Everyone nodded again. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sighed. What Imperial College teaches is too shallow, too superficial. What do the directorates teach now? They don't even teach anything profound. A 5 element star sovereign entering the star palace means you have mastered the power of the 5 elements, which is also the power of the 5 phases. As long as the power of the 5 elements merges into your vital chi will gain 5 more kinds of attributes. He raised his palm and a golden shield appeared before him. Gold. Wood. After the golden shield vanished, the vegetation around them surged into wild growth. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Water." Great waves surged forth and lifted all of them up, letting them float in mid-air as they stepped atop the waves. Fire. Fire clouds rose into the sky and carried Qin and the others up, allowing them to travel forward upon the fire clouds. Earth. The ground roiled as countless mud and stones rose into the sky, forming an enormous sphere of earth. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor dispersed these 5 kinds of energy, and everyone settled back onto the ground gently. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "The control granted by the 5 elements is different from what the spirit embryo controls. It differs from the 4 kinds of vital chi: green dragon, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and white tiger. These 4 kinds of vital chi cannot be simply classified as wood, fire, water, gold. Instead, each kind of vital chi conceals 5 phases within. Why do you all look as though you're listening to a heavenly book? You don't understand?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was bewildered and shook his head. "The scholars of your batch are too dumb, the lousiest batch I have ever taught."